Hello, hello, hello. My name is Nate Rasa, and welcome back to I Just Can't Even With Myself Right Now, my personal pet project podcast where I discuss absolutely anything that comes to mind, because limits are for losers, and in my space, we follow the wind. So sit back, tense up, and enjoy NE Unleashed. And as always, live it up, folks, and make it happen. Introverted sensing. Let's start with introverted sensing. Man, I'm already starting out this episode with just a confuddle, just a vomiting of words, it seems. So we're just gonna enjoy a little babble about this. As you may not already know, so I grew up with two SI-dom parents. My dad being ISTJ, my mom is an ISFJ. So according to socionics, I've got both my semi-duality and my duality as personified as one of each of my parents. Now, there are arguments or reasonings online that mention that finding relationships with these people could be very beneficial because there's something about them that we crave, as me being, let's say, an IE or an ENFP, crave with them because their dominant is my inferior and vice versa. But let me just say that's, I don't know, I feel like that's just pushing it at this point. At least I'm reaching. Granted, I'm not gonna say no to a girl who's, let's say, an SI dominant, because that's not my point. But growing up, I feel like I already understand introverted sensing a lot. Growing up, I already kind of knew that this is going to be, this is the function that I know I have to aim for, but can't seem to completely, become, which I feel like is kind of hilarious as well as kind of sad, especially with how I am with everything. And let me elaborate on that. So before I move on with that, introverted sensing is how I see it, actually, and I'm going to use my kind of personal explanation on this, blending a little bit and pulling sources on how this created this definition. Obviously, hit me up with a comment, let me know if you guys don't agree. But introverted sensing, from what I understand, is kind of a focus and a prioritizing of comfort, of recreating sensations that were favorable for the individual in question. The whole nature of the function is introverted as well as subjective, because the entire function is focused on the self's needs of trying to figure out what about their senses that they're internalizing that has somehow given them this feeling that they just want to have again. So people like these people are going to be the folks who kind of go their way, establishing routines, keeping up with things, and making sure that everything around them is just working out. However, let me kind of add on to this a little bit, because sometimes we kind of don't even see how this function is, because I know a lot of SJs get a lot of bad rep on online type communities, and I figured that with the intuitives out there who are striving at least to give SJs the voice that they need. And until SJs are finally being able to speak up what they need to, the rest of us are going to try to be able to contain what bias that somehow people who have gotten into this theory system community have, I guess, cursed us to have. But anyways, so with someone who's introverted sensing, the way that they kind of process reality is it's quite linear, actually. I have this argument where NE and SI is the axis that is more horizontal by nature, while NE kind of bounces around and seeks out the possibilities around them. Everything is still within the same level of scope of reality, that it's still within something that within our line of sight, and nothing really kind of goes beyond, other than the fact that it sees the chaos in front of us and kind of reacts off of that. And SI is picking up the details and learning what parts kind of connect with each other and pulling those and making sure that they don't make the same mistakes. It's very connected to their bodies. I know that with SI folks, they're not really disconnected. I mean, granted, they don't have NI, so really a lot of this is going to be lacking in that sense. And the lacking portion doesn't make them stupid. The lack of NI makes them work twice as hard to well, I wouldn't say be smarter, but it makes them work really hard to maintain and sustain knowledge and intelligence. So they're really great archival type of folks. I know with my mom being an ISFJ, her biggest advice to me, and I still carry this to this day, is everything should be charged to experience. So allow me to elaborate that. Think of it like you have a credit card, or you have some form of financial way of getting things. When you buy something from a restaurant or you pay something, you charge it as a bill. Let's say you use a credit card to charge for it, and you're asking for it to pay back. Now, when the concept or the idiom of charge to experience, the term experience, the concept, the intangible phrase of experience is your credit card. So when you swipe that, anything you experience in reality, you have to learn from. You pay for it. Any mistake you make, you pay for it with experience. You have to make it stick in your brain, make a wrinkle in one of your brain, like in your little like cortexes that kind of wrap around your little, like the walnut shape that's inside your head, and keep that so that it becomes your teacher later on in life, and it will come again so that you don't have to make that same mistake again. So that's literally all she's telling me, is that any mistake that I make, I should get up and continue moving forward, because we need to keep trying. There is no use in sitting down and moping around, which is, granted, as an NE Dom, that's not something that is very comfortable for me, because I like to be able to vomit the chaos first. I want to express it out into the world, and I want to just kind of take it for what it is, without having to kind of go through all the other nooks and crannies, because I'm not an NI user. A lot of the times too, if I tend to ignore my SI, even if I wanted to, even if I didn't want to. But we just kind of have to I just have to kind of deal with it, because it's not, I would say it's not easy, right? SI is my inferior. So there's a whole lack of just awareness in that. I know with, because it's a valued function for me, the need and desire for comfort is something that's incredibly important. That permeates, it kind of permeates my worldview with a lot of things in my life. And for some reason, I just can't seem to kind of always function. Well, I found that if I want to function properly, I'd actually have to consider my SI needs first. Like, for example, any routines that I sought to establish, anything of value that I need to create and manifest has to be done prior to any work first, play later. Which is, I think, granted, that's something that is applicable for every human being. Like, every adult growing up knows that play first is not the best concept. That's not the best teacher. But sometimes, as an IEE, ENFP type of person like myself, sometimes play first is what we do. And that's not something I'm proud of. But what am I going to do other than the fact that I find it fun? And I'm also a type 7, so that's going to be, that's something. Excuse me. But seeing how introverted sensing kind of fills my world, there's so much kind of funny moments too where it actually comes incredibly handy. When you have introverted sensing, there is a need where relaxation is important, is a priority. And I think other types miss out on that. They miss out on the need to be comfortable, miss out on the need to realize that sitting down and taking a moment for yourself, for your body to recover, is actually very important and significant for your sustainability of surviving. Because without it, you're not going to be able to assess the risks that you need to assess, because your brain isn't functioning properly because you didn't feed it with the proper nutrients that SI would argue that you need. And I know with higher stack SI people, they can feel something and they can feel how it affects their emotional and mental state so quickly. They can just catch a cold and realize, oh, it's because of this happened to me. And I'm going, what? How did you get to that conclusion? But apparently it's a thing. I know folks with polar SI, which is the ENTJs and the ENFJs of the world, will react to my saying that and as I'm going that sounds like witchcraft. How do you connect your physical symptoms with a mental scape? But that's what SI does, especially SI in the ego block. It's really powerful. And people doesn't seem to understand its use. I mean, when we're young, we don't really care about, oh, we have to sleep early. Oh, we have to take a moment to study. We have to do this, we have to do that. Like, we don't really care about the details. But SI argues the devil is in the details. You need to find out. You need to know that things are going to go wrong. And when they do, you got to be prepared. And I always like to kind of, in a sense, if you put the two introverted perceiving functions together, they're basically arguing about who can kind of get to their end goal properly based on how they kind of perceive the world. With NI arguing that they don't really need all the details. They're so in tune with the intuition of time that they can just know when they need to act with their SE. But with SI, they don't got that. So they don't have really any kind of framework to kind of fall back on. So because of that, they're going to say, you know what, I don't have that, so I'm going to do something else. I'm going to make a system, or I'm going to follow the system that I've been following that seems to be getting me the results that I need. And if not, I will try to seek other possible ways to deviate slightly in order to reach the same goal. It's very horizontal and it's very introspective. There's always a look back in the past to know what we need to carry with us into the future. There is something about SI that makes them very, very futuristic, and at least I'd argue that they can be. I mean, there's super preparedness, they're into preparedness. That's definitely something. I remember someone telling me that I had such good SI or something because somehow I've been exposed to it in my life. Therefore, my SI must be fantastic. And the thing is I have to slightly disagree because I don't know so much as how I can improve my own inferior function. I love flexing my tertiary function, but improving my inferior is kind of an oddball kind of statement that I can't seem to fully back just yet. And with it, I just want to say that, like, it's not that that I'm not good at it. It's just that, like, so what if I wash dishes and I fold clothes in midnight because I need to make sure my routines are taken care of. It's just because I learned the hard way that if I didn't do that, my body suffers and my mind suffers. And as a person who's an intuitive, losing your mind is not exactly the most fun, kind of feeling. Like, that's not what you want to lose. So that's why we do what we got to do. We can't just, forget that, if that makes sense. And sometimes for me, I don't understand how people can work for 3 days straight without taking a blink, without moving to a side and resting your head and passing out. I don't see it. I don't get it. But at the same time, you do you. That's your thing. That's not my problem. But I just want to say, with introverted sensing and everyone's kind of misunderstanding of the concept, this is a function that's really, really helpful for the masses. There's a reason why SI is the predominant function in our society. There's a reason why people like this function. There's a reason why it seems to function well. It's like extroverted sensing. It's very connected to reality. There is a kind of in-tune synchronicity it has, where it shapes its perceived reality is directly shaped by how the direction of their processing works. And when you observe that in people who are SI in the ego block, which what that means is SI dominant and SI auxiliary, you can see how powerful it comes off and how they can make a system survive. Sure, I don't know if so much they can make it thrive, but they can make a system survive. And that's one of the most important things we need in communities. Reality without the proper SJ kind of maintenance, it will not hold. And I say these things about a lot of things. We all need all the functions in order to have a thriving, sustainable, and continuous flow of society. But SI has just as much of a stake in the claim of survival and success as any other function in the Myers-Briggs system, in the cognitive function stacks, in sociotype. It's on there. It's on the list. Granted, the entire system is horizontal. Like it's a horizontal system. So in a sense, every kind of argument we make, it'll have to always come back to everything's equal and everything's great. So that's fine. We can't always argue like, oh, I'm better than you and all that good stuff, which obviously not. Which, by the way, reminds me again, I do not understand how people can be so full of themselves, thinking that they know more about another person. I find that so hard to kind of sense in myself, or to even claim that I am more intelligent than other people. Say you there listening to me will find that how I explain something may make a lot of sense. But then you ask another person, and they may wonder that I didn't make a lot of sense at all. And it was that I'm just spouting some pseudoscience that doesn't really make any sense. And I can't blame them for that. That's their opinion. And as an NE-DOM, I have to acknowledge that opposing perspective is as true and as equal and as of value as mine. So it's already a dilemma trying to dance around and handle how this is all going to go. But here we are making that happen. So it's just always hilarious to kind of observe kind of my little personal curse when it comes to this moment, but also drawing the lesson that at the same time, even if I don't know much about a subject, that I'm not alone. Other people out there don't know much about it either, and we're all just on the same lump of rock, just trying to make something happen. And that's a good thing. I think there's comfort knowing that we don't have all the answers, because having all the answers means that there is nothing left to learn. And being a consumer type, I love to learn. I can't stop. It's half of me kind of dislikes the fact that I'm just constantly absorbing information, but the other half of me really does like it. And it's the big thing as to why I enjoy, and I've accepted completely and wholeheartedly my type. As a person, as an ENFP, IEE, whatever I make it work, we have to. We have to see that our reality is valid, and we have to just make do with what we have, with the cards that we're dealt with. I make arguments that, that NE and FI in the ego block is just kind of difficult to deal with. As an individual, it's hard for us to make an impact on reality properly. There's I would say a lot of mental blocks that we have to kind of go over first. I mean, heck, you grow up being extroverted intuitive first, believing that everybody's right, and then FI kicking in, believing that you somehow hold a spot on this planet. And then for the most part, some people just stay in that little zone, that little comfort zone, and they never try to reach out to their third function, and have this weird trauma thing where they always argue against SI, but secretly they actually like it. So it's just a mess. Realizing that the only reason why we like it is because we know we need the solution of our lower functions to make an impact in reality, but we refuse to because it's already so hard. I don't know, because we're just so traumatized with the problems that we're dealing with, that the weight that we put on ourselves as ENFPs. And granted, this is all just theory, and I'm just throwing that out there for everybody else to kind of play in and see how that goes. But at the same time, that's me rambling, right? That's me trying to figure out how I can just make life easier. And I mean, show me an ENFP who doesn't find pride or doesn't take pride in trying to make life easier for themselves. We know how hard it is. We're not made for the planet. The planet is not designed for us. With inferior introverted sensing, it's just trying to understand why our possibilities and potentials can't seem to take our own advice. And that's because we can't even sustain our own ideas. We react off of others. We play this game of, maybe I know what the other person's talking about because I've read enough books to kind of assume, kind of infer and read between the lines, and then aggressively try to guess, see if it makes sense, and try to overuse it, fill in the gaps, do all that good stuff. But it's hilarious that this is what we try and this is what we do. And I mean, I have to say, I am very appreciative of the ENFPs that I have met online who have superbly helped me kind of wrap my head around it, because I've always kind of had this thing in the back of my head believing that ENFPs are kind of incompetent. Like we're stupid until proven otherwise. And for the most part, dealing with the online communities, sometimes that's true. Sometimes I see a lot of IEEs, spouting something random and stupid, and you can't help but feel, why'd you say that? And they feel so confident that they're correct, and you don't understand why. Like, they can't even make a stance for the life of them, or for the, even if they're about to die or whatever, it doesn't really matter. They can't make a stance. They're deathly afraid of conflict. They spout all these weird kind of beliefs things without any kind of understanding that they've actually thought about these belief systems. They never really questioned them. So you're left kind of sitting there going, I was there. You're the person that I would say was me, let's say 5 years ago. And here we are having this conversation, and it's very awkward. But I like to say that for the ENFPs that I've met, Crystal, Heidi, what other ENFPs I've met? Alexa, even. Like, I'm just gonna throw them down. I would say I'll even throw down Mikey's name in this case. You know who you guys are. You guys are ENFPs that I gotta say that have proven it, at least, that by remaining busy, by remaining yourself, by pushing out the whole, and at the same time trying to remain or practice humility and loving everybody, knowing that's not easy for us to do. That's the coolest thing for me to watch. And you guys can call me out for being like, oh, you're such a competent ENFP and all that good juicy stuff. But I have to say that I couldn't have done it without the people out there showing me that it's possible. I need to know it's possible for me to enact and make something happen. I need to know that these things exist. If I don't, it's that much harder for me to kind of wrap my head around it, that much harder for me to enact something about it. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to make, if I want to make an impact on this planet, I gotta be able to know how the system works. And without TI, I can't critically think necessarily what needs to be done. And so that becomes difficult for me to kind of play around with that and how to kind of work around that. So, I don't really know how. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing, if that makes sense. Granted, I don't have SE. I can't give you the whole 5 years from now plan with the portfolio and everything. I consume and collect skill sets along the way. I don't actually, hope that this is going to all become one beautiful mosaic of skills. I hope so. Actually, well, let's say I hope so, but I don't expect it to be so. And that's the hard thing, is to accept that other people don't see it the same way. And that's okay. The fact that we're all different is okay. Growing up, being an adult now and having that realization that this is all acceptable is mind-blowing for me. Even to this day, I am still mind-blown by it. But I would just like to spread that appreciation. It's a wonderful Friday night. I think that there's so little good vibes in the world, and we need a little bit more. I personally am not an inspirer type. Meaning that as an individual, not as a type as in general. I think I don't see myself as a person that likes to constantly push people to motivate them. But at the same time, I also just want to say that with the good vibes that we are lacking, I feel we're lacking in the world. I feel like we need to push a little bit more of that, remind people that there is a good side to things. We just need to reframe our perspective and take back control that we thought were lost. And it's a thing, and that's okay. So, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for tuning in. I didn't realize it was going to get a little bit serious and motivational, but I guess here we are, right? It's, 1 a.m. for me, so we're just going to make that happen. We're just going to live it up. And again, thank you guys. You guys can reach me on Twitter. You can reach me on Discord, on YouTube. I just realized I've been dabbling in a lot of social media platforms, and I didn't even realize it. But so far, it's been going pretty well. So far, I'm bonding with a lot of good folks, and I think it's really important in a type community to get in touch with everybody and to just be connected with everybody and to enjoy being able to discuss things that like shared passions that we might be able to apply in our lives and to use to improve ourselves and our self-growth. I think all that stuff is very delicious. And because of that, I'd like to say good night, everybody. You guys have a wonderful evening, and till next time. Bye.